ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another exciting round of Poly Live. Okay, well, everybody, welcome back. This is game number 2 of Sergeant Sub versus Innofunni. Game 1 was a decisive victory for Sergeant Sub. Let's see if he can keep that momentum going in this second game, or if Innofunni can pull out a win from his hat. Looking at these spawns, we can see Sergeant Sub has a pretty similar spawn to what he had last time. A lot of fish, a lot of resources around. Innofunni, again, in a similar position. Couple fruits, might be some farms in there. Both players were lucky enough to find villages on turn 2. So let's see what is around these other villages. See if that's going to impact what technologies these players decide to purchase in order to level up their cities. Sergeant Sub to keep the win train going. Innofunni to pull out a win and bring dignity back to his name. Alright. You see Innofunni has decided to purchase Organization to level up his capital. And once again, we can see some farms around, so perhaps that will be a tier 2 technology, but that is pretty expensive, so maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't. I don't know, only time will tell. Alright, Sergeant Sub opts for fishing, because as I said last time, he has fish around both of his new villages, so he will get the most bang for his buck with that technology. And Innofunni, again, with the very extreme score counting there. Scoreboard on, scoreboard off, scoreboard on, scoreboard off. All right, Sergeant Sub opted to take an Explorer, a bit of a risky play, as we can see with that Explorer turning right around. But it did end up paying off again, because he did meet Innofunni for Organization, which is going to be extremely useful for Sergeant Sub developing his economy in these coming turns. All right, we see both players are very soon going to be at 3 villages each. A nice, fair, even match, if I dare say so. Sergeant Sub claims the 3rd village, and he's going to level up his capital with those fish. And let's see what he's going to do with this warrior here. He's thinking what he wants to do with it. He doesn't have any stars. Maybe he's thinking that there's a chance that there is an amphibian in the fog, although you and I know that there isn't one. He opts to leave the warrior on his village in order to garrison it to defend it. Innofunni has purchased amphibians. So he does have riders. He does have a route to get onto the sea. So we might see him be a bit aggressive. Maybe try and mimic what Sergeant Sub did in the previous game. Sergeant Sub has level 3'd his capital. Not surprising. Had a lot of resources near it. I would have done the exact same thing if I was in his boots. And he is going to get, I would bet that's going to be a workshop. Yes, it is on that southern city. Alright, he's checking the tech tree, wants to check those prices on those technologies. Sergeant Sub is probably eyeing up amphibians as well. Possibly to expand over the ocean, maybe scoop up a 4th village, if possible. In fact, I think there is a 4th village in that southern corner there, because there is a fish that is more than 2 tiles away from Sergeant Sub's southernmost village, and fish, animals, and fruit can only spawn within 2 tiles of any village. So that fish in that southern corner tells Sergeant Sub, hey, there's a village over here. That might be part of the reason Sergeant Sub is eyeing up amphibians at the moment. Innofunni getting an explorer and getting vision over all of Sergeant Sub's territory. And it does show him that Sergeant Sub has leveled up each of his cities, some more than others, and perhaps indicating to Innofunni that he is at a bit of a disadvantage economically, but only a bit. Innofunni currently sitting at 7 stars per turn, Sergeant Sub at 10. It is only a difference of 3 stars per turn, but sometimes those 3 stars are what will make or break a game. Only time will tell, and it's all going to come down to which player better presses the advantage economically. Innofunni getting a crab from that ruin. Unfortunately, it is a little bit far away from the action, but hey, a crab is better than no crab, right? That's right. So, Innofunni is sort of taking a survey of the land, getting an idea of how things look, trying to make the best decisions with his units. We see he's moving the amphibian over to the eastern corner of the map, trying to expand and find that other village. to hopefully build up his economic base to be better than Sergeant Subs. Looking at the technology screen, he's really thinking here. He's trying to get the best value out of these 7 stars that he has to spend. Possibly in his head trying to think a few turns in advance. If I spend these stars now, how many will I have next turn? And if I have this many next turn, what can I buy? Opts to get an amphibian and ends his turn. Let's see what Sergeant Sub is going to do. Puts an amphibian on that southern city because, like I said last time, he absolutely knows that there is another village in that southern corner, again, because of the fish, as we discussed. Kills with an amphibian. Let's see what he's going to do with these warriors. I'm willing to bet he's going to. All right, he has put an amphibian on that northern city. He is going for the Aquarion equivalent of rider spam right now. Ooh. Let's take a look-see here. Innofunni sees all these amphibians popping up, and he knows that there is danger on the horizon. He has found that 4th village he was opting for. Oh, and now we see him purchase Free Spirit. So we might see some Tridentians in this match here. And I don't know about you folks watching, but when I see Aquarion get Tridents, I am a very, very scared man because Tridents are very effective at making things die. All right, Sergeant Sub is moving that southern amphibian. Like I said, I'd be surprised if he didn't try to go for that southern village. He's advancing his units towards Innofunni's southern city. That would be a pretty costly siege. That is one of Inno's larger cities. So certainly one he does not want to have lit on fire. At the moment, looks like Sergeant Sub is mostly just getting in position like a puma ready to strike. Yep, that's absolutely what's going on here. He is a puma ready to strike. He is going for amphibian spam. And with all these amphibians, I would be surprised if Inno manages to prevent Sergeant Sub from sieging that southern city right now. The crab is slowly moving in. This would be the moment where I'd say, "Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?" But yeah, we'll leave that for later. Okay, Innofunni spawns a warrior on that city for a defense bonus. He's going to try and make Sergeant Sub bleed as much as possible in order to take that village. And he's gotten his way over to that far east village. Okay, opting for amphibians. He's poising himself to unsiege. Now, we do know he wanted to get tridents, since we did see him purchase Free Spirit, that's the word. But with this amount of pressure that Sergeant Sub is putting on Innofunni, is he going to be able to afford those tridents? Only time will tell. And it's all going to depend really on how Sergeant Sub proceeds with this turn. Is he going to be able to siege? Is he going to be able to siege in a way that prevents Innofunni from unsieging? These are all questions that Sergeant Sub is asking himself in his head, and he's trying to think of a way forward. All right, we see him begin to execute his turn. He's opting to attack first the warrior that does not have a defense bonus. Opting to get that out of the way to open the avenue of attack to more of his units. And here we go. There's Amphibian. And we are going to see him likely now siege with other Amphibian, question mark, or not. He's going to opt for weakening. Oh, never mind. He does have a other warrior in range. Pay no mind to me. I am 100% convinced. I know what I'm looking at. So yeah, Sergeant Sub sieging with a warrior. Innofunni can break the siege. I'm surprised Sergeant Sub didn't use an amphibian to block the siege, instead opting to pull them back. Perhaps to get ready to siege again next turn, because a very valid strategy that a lot of players use is even if a siege won't hold, they still light the city on fire regardless, because that's keeping the enemy's tech costs high and it's reducing their income. So for however long you're sieging this enemy's city, you're just going to be putting them in a deeper and deeper into a world of hurt. So Innofunny is opting to weaken um, one of Sergeant Sub's amphibians, and he does not have the units around to break that siege. That is going to be a fairly costly loss right there for Innofunny. Granted, he does have a little bit of hope in the way of that eastern city, but is it going to be enough to make up for the loss of this city that Sergeant Sub has besieged? And quite frankly, if I were a gambling man, I would probably say no. Because at this point, once Sergeant Sub takes that village, he'll have 4 cities. The following turn, he'll have a 5th city with that southern city there in the corner. And then Innofunny will be at 3 cities. And just when it comes to that, Sergeant Sub will effectively have made the match become a war of attrition that Innofunny won't really be in a position to win. Granted, yes, Innofunny does have the crab, which Sergeant Sub doesn't have a wonderful answer for, but all Sergeant Sub needs to win is the capital. Is it possible that we're going to see... Oh, both players do have free spirits. The both of them are eyeing up tridents. Sergeant Sub doing so probably because of that crab that's looming around the corner. Right, he's thinking of what he wants to do here. He does obviously see that crab. He does know that that is a big threat at the moment. Because as I said, he doesn't have a wonderful answer for it. Aside from amphibian spam. The other thing to note is because both of these players have free spirit, it means they can move their units on deep ocean tiles, as Sergeant Sub just did. Maybe he'll get a crab of his own from that ruin. Who knows? Only time will tell. Okay. Oh, and that is absolutely a very, very lucky break there for Sergeant Sub. I'm not sure if Inno didn't quite count his stars correctly. But Sergeant Sub getting to slide into that capital there for Inno. I think that is checkmate, if I'm not mistaken, because Inno, I don't think has enough units. Oh, he does. He does. Never mind. Pay no mind. I thought, well, Innofunny lives to fight another day right now, and he does have his crab moved into position, and it looks like he is going to kick Sergeant Sub off of that ruin, and he finds himself another village. Now, this is interesting. That's absolutely going to help even out the playing field a little bit. Because as I said last time, Sergeant Sub's about to have 5 villages. It would have been against 3, but now that Inno has found the other village, it's going to be 5 against 4, which is a bit of a fairer fight. Sergeant Sub gets onto a ruin for himself, checking his tech costs. Apparently his microphone is in use according to that pop-up. Okay. He's thinking. He knows if he steps on that ocean ruin, it will be absolutely toast. And he has decided to purchase those tridents, which very likely is going to be how he answers this crab. So we see him thinking what he wants to do with these amphibians. Mostly looks like he is putting them into position to counter this crab. And to protect that ruin in that southern village. He's really taking time to think. He wants to make sure he makes the right plays here. Really thinking it through. Okay, looks like he's not opting to attack the crab quite yet, but instead have units be in position to be ready to counter that crab. We did see him purchase Chivalry last turn, which will mean he has enough for a Trident next turn, even accounting for his reduction in income from this siege. And this is going to be really interesting because the majority of this combat has been happening on this western side of the map, and very soon these players are also going to find each other in the east, and so that might play out with an interesting dynamic where they're going to have to spread their forces out a bit more to be able to hold their villages over there in the east. And we see Sergeant Sub is opting to chop for stars using Free Spirit. And he just now, like I said, met Innofunni over there in the east, and so that's an interesting development for these players. Gets a kill on that amphibian and sees that Innofunni is going to get another village there in the frontier. But again, that crab, that pesky, pesky crab, is a real pain, a real thorn in Sergeant Sub's side right now. He does have a trident on his capital that is ready to lob a trident over at that crab. Is he going to mass human wave charge this crab? I don't know. But now that Sergeant Sub has tridents out on this map, it will be a harder victory for Innofunni, since those ranged units are going to be quite effective at countering that crab. He's opting to level up his southern city. Getting a workshop, more stars, means more ability to spawn tridents, and that is always a good thing. Just taking a look at the lay of the land, perhaps trying to plan a few turns into the future, and the turn is passed to Innofunni. Innofunni, who is about to get 2 new cities this turn. One he will take from Sergeant Sub in that siege with the crab. One he will get on that village in the east. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, to see where Sergeant Sub is going to send the majority of his units. Is he going to send them against the crab? Is he going to try and apply pressure on it to Inno from the east? It's going to be interesting to see what decision these players make. At this moment right now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd be willing to say that we are in the deciding few turns. It's all going to come down to what decisions are made right now in these coming turns that will decide whether the victory will go to Sergeant Sub or if the victory will go to Innofunni. Neither of them particularly wants to step on that ruin because they know the other has the forces there to kill whatever unit is put onto that ruin. All right, on to Sergeant Sub. Let's see what he does. He throws a spear at that crab. Builds a trident in the south. Not sure if that's going to be going after the crab or going to the east. I'd be willing to bet it's going to go towards the east. And Sergeant Sub kills a warrior over by Innofunni's capital and manages to upgrade, or rather have a warrior ready to upgrade to veteran. And he opts to apply pressure to Innofunni from the east. Now he can't ignore that crab forever, and he's going to take the gamble. He's going to step onto that ruin. Depending on how he moves these amphibians, he might be able to block Innofunni from kicking him off the ruin. If he does some mental gymnastics, a bit of juggling here, perhaps, but that's for minds smarter than mine. Still has a few more units that can move around, wants to make sure he does smart things with those units. Taking time to think over his plays because he absolutely recognizes it. Like I said, these are going to be the deciding turns that determine who is going to get the W for this match. It's going to come down to the decisions these players make and the units they spawn. Opts to spawn a warrior. No, never mind. Deciding how he wants to spend these 5 stars. Okay. Makes an amphibian and a warrior. Yes? Come on, Sergeant. Yes, a warrior. Okay. He just wanted to run that over in his head another couple times or something, I suppose. And now he's deciding where he wants to retreat these amphibians. Instead of opting to block, he is instead going to have them retreat back and be ready to be poised to strike again. He kind of wants Innofunni to choose. Do I want to send these amphibians to kill the unit on the ruin? Do I want to break the siege? Now, thankfully for Innofunni, he does have enough units to deal with both threats on that front. Sergeant Sub was hoping it would spread out Innofunni's units, which it rather effectively is at the moment. Innofunni picking off some of Sergeant Sub's weakened units and harassing that one Tridentian that shot at Innofunni's crab. All right, Innofunni preparing a defense of his capital. Having his warrior in position to fight back if Sergeant Sub is to thrust in that direction. Moves the crab off of the village and spawns a warrior. He's sending that crab right for the capital. Sergeant Sub will need to kill that crab before it reaches that capital. Because like I said, folks, once that capital is fallen, it is game over. I just realized I earlier said it was looking to be Sergeant Sub at 5 cities versus Innofunni at 4, and right now it's Innofunni at 5 cities and Sergeant Sub at 4. Just a little twist of poetic irony there, if this humble commentator says so.
To me, it's the beauty of Aquarion.
It absolutely is the beauty of Aquarion, Corey. You're absolutely right. When it comes to Aquarion, the only rule that is to be followed is to expect the unexpected.
Yep.
That seems to be the rule of law when it comes to Aquarion. All right, Sergeant Sub is moving his tridents into position. It looks like he's going to be using them on that crab because, as I said, once that capital falls, it is game over. And Sergeant is going to need to kill that crab. That crab is currently public enemy number 1 for Sergeant Sub. All right, he puts down his Gate of Power to level up his city for 5 stars for free, which is going to let him put a trident on that capital of his, and it's safe to put that trident there because the crab cannot attack after it moves. I've got 2 more stars, trying to think, what can I do with these stars that would be smart? Because it's often the smart plays that bring home the victory. Okay, opts to move the warrior back and level it up to veteran to basically get damage on Innofunni's warrior for free. Okay, what's he gonna do? He spent his remaining stars on that warrior. And he continues to have his units run away from the crab. Crabs are scary, I don't blame him. I would run from crabs as well. They've got like pincers and stuff. They're dangerous creatures. All right, Innofunni at 20 stars. He moves the crab in to get ready to say checkmate. It's like I said, folks, it comes down to will Sergeant Sub kill the crab or will he not? I think he is in good enough shape that he can kill that crab. Only time will tell. Innofunni still has 18 stars left to spend. It's turn 15. We are getting pretty deep into this game. Most Blitz games are finished at this point. So this really is a battle of wits at this point. Who's going to break first? And honestly, folks, right now I could see this game going either way. I don't want to play favorites. I don't want to put money down on anybody. But I think both players still have avenues that they can take that will bring them to victory.
I'm very surprised not seeing any roads.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say the exact same thing. It's because both of these players have been really spending all of their stars on units. And roads absolutely would have made people's lives a lot easier on both sides of this unit. Sergeant Sub is running a poly calculator. He recognizes that crab is public enemy number 1. And he's running these calculations. He knows that crab has to go. And this is make or break. That crab either dies right now or Sergeant Sub dies right now. one or the other. They both can't walk out alive. But I absolutely agree with you, Cora, that it's interesting we haven't seen Rhodes because with Rhodes, Sergeant Sub would have been able to siege Innofunny's capital a couple turns now. But Sergeant Sub has been spending his money, spending his stars rather, in the right way, I would say. Getting those tridents is going to give him a big edge over Innofunny, who, as we saw a moment ago, was checking his tech cost. And it's going to be 19 stars for spearing, which he just will not be able to afford, especially with so many cities that are under-leveled that are going to make his tech costs skyrocket. All right, so here's the deciding factor. Looks like Sergeant Sub is going to first siege, try and reclaim that village. He knows Innofunny very likely has the units there to break that siege, so he instead opts to move his amphibian forward to zone of control and have his spear step onto that village. Let's see what he does here. He's still having the spears go. He's not going to be able to outright kill this crab right now, but he has put himself in a position that if that crab steps on that capital, he should be safe. The way that Innofunny gets out of this is he needs to find a way to get rid of the majority of those spears. If he can get rid of enough spears that this crab survives after stepping onto that capital, he can clinch the victory. But as of right now, if Sergeant Sub can kill the crab after it steps on the capital, he can live to fight another day. As of right now, it seems like living to fight another day is all you really can do to try and get yourself that victory. Never give up, never surrender. That applies to both Polytopia and real life. Get real life advice over here on Polyblitz Live.
Yes, sir.
All right. Sergeant Sub has 6 stars left. Trying to spend them again as smartly as possible. Smartly? Is that even a word? I don't know. Thank you. We put his device back in landscape mode so I can see what is going on. All right, he's going to use these warriors here in the north to continue putting pressure on Innofunny's capital. Five stars, wants to spend them as wisely as possible. Bearing in mind that he will have a crab that needs to be killed next turn. All right, opting for a warrior and a rider once again, or rather amphibian. All right, Innofunny opting to pick off one of Sergeant Sub's warriors over there in the north, applying pressure to that capital. And opting to go for and kill one of Sergeant Sub's tridents. As I said, if he can get rid of the majority of these tridents, he can maybe get his crab on that capital. He also needs to find a way to break this siege. Puts down a gate of power for 3 stars. He puts himself up to 32 stars. And it's enough to get him tridents. So both of our players now have tridents. It's a trident on trident match. So we are about to see the real high-level pro plays at this point in time. Now, granted, those tridents cost a lot for Innofunny to get. And Sergeant Sub has the slight advantage where he was able to use the tridents first to build up some momentum. And it's going to come down to, is Innofunny going to be able to catch up to that momentum with the tridents of his own? We'll all just have to wait and see. And it looks to me like Innofunny was not able to break the siege. Sergeant Sub successfully reconquering his taken village. All right. So Sergeant Sub reclaiming his village. He's trying to think. He wants to keep applying pressure there in the north. He does have a veteran warrior, which is just that little bit harder to kill than the other classes of warrior. Okay. Up goes the tridents. Yeah, with that crab siege failing for Innofunni, uh, it might be too little too late with him getting those tridents. Innofunny had built up some momentum when he took that village from Sergeant Sub with his ruin crab, but it looks like with Sergeant Sub being successful in his reconquest, we might be looking at the tide of battle changing, and Sergeant Sub being the top dog once again in this match. Turn 16, again, would like to point that out. Again, these fast turns games very rarely get this late in the game. And this is honestly just a testament to the skill that these players have, that they are able to apply enough pressure to one another and counter one another that the game is able to last this long. Sergeant Sub is very slowly tightening that noose around Innofunny's capital. As I said, I think that reconquest and ultimately that failure of the crab siege looks like it has changed the tide of war in Sergeant Sub's favor. Innofunny, we saw him try to go for tridents pretty early on, and he managed to stay alive for quite a while. But ultimately, he did get spearing last turn. He does have tridents on the map right now, but I mean, just look at the two sides. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tridents on Sergeant Sub's side versus just the one over there for Innofunny. I said it once, I'll say it again. Too little, too late. Sergeant Sub got to the tridents first. Sergeant Sub countered the crab. Sergeant Sub reclaimed his village and managed to not lose enough momentum for it to be game-changing after losing that city. And if I were to be a gambling man, if I were to bet, I'd think at the moment, this is looking like it's going to be Sergeant Sub. Innofunny is managing to stay alive up there on the capital. But with all those units there, and especially with those tridents, I don't know how much longer Innofunny can stay on that capital. If Sergeant Sub plays his cards right, I think he can end up sieging Innofunny's capital in a way that prevents Inno from unsieging. That's precisely what we see. He sets up with the trident and then moves in with the warrior. Now we just got to see how he answers those units Innofunny has near the capital. If he can kill enough of them, he can secure the victory. We see him continuing to spawn tridents. Really press the advantage. Once you have this many tridents on the field, it is very, very hard to come back from that. Rather, if your opponent has this many tridents on the field, it's hard to come back from that. Yeah, Sergeant Sub is playing his cards very, very well at the moment. Not only tightening the noose on Innofunny's capital, but also moving units there towards the frontier, applying pressure on all fronts. I think this is it, folks. I don't think Innofunny comes back from this. Or if he does come back from this, maybe he finds a way to break that siege. I don't know how he's going to break that siege a second time. Because as it stands right now, like I said, Sergeant Sub is poised to win. And just to reflect what Cora said earlier, both of these players have tridents. Neither of them have roads. And they still manage to be mobile enough because of really that water in the center there. But it is very interesting to see how these players went about this game without roads. Because there were several turns where if either player had roads, it absolutely would have had a massive impact on the outcome of the game. But even still, The game has passed to Sergeant Sub. Innofunni did not break the siege, and that is it. With the capital captured, this game is over with a very, very hard fought and well earned victory from Sergeant Sub. The war between the two team leaders in the Poly Champions Discord League has ended with a decisive victory for Sergeant Sub. 2 wins against Innofunni. Absolutely wonderfully played on both sides. Wow, what a game. What a game.
Good game,
And we
guys.
hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. And we will